Welcome, LBI family, to this your podcast. We're so excited today. We have a guest with us, Pastor Freddy Romero. How are you?
Good, good, good. What's good, LEVI?
Hey, man, look, we're so grateful that you're coming. We've been knowing each other for about what, 3, 4 years?
3 years now?
3 years,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And we have the opportunity to serve under our pastor Josh and Noemi Chavez at Revive Church in Long Beach. But what do you share with the students? What do you do? What is your role right now?
Yeah. In 2019, we became campus pastors of El Monte, our campus in El Monte, my wife and I. But since the pandemic happened in 2020, I've taken more of a prominent role in leading our creative team, just a good collection of smart, young, driven, guys and girls. And so we've been doing that, trying to create things, resources for our church, aside from the Sunday experience online. And so that's what I'm doing right now at Revive Church, and just helping facilitate all that.
You know what? And this is going to lead us to our conversation. Today we want to talk about flexibility, being adaptable, because the reality is that when you serve in ministry, it's all about that many times, and I think you have a story about when it comes down to that. Like, if you're not flexible or adaptable to what is coming
Yeah,
your
for
way,
sure.
you can get stuck.
Yeah, for sure.
Correct?
One of my favorite quotes is Mike Tyson once said, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth," and that's so true. Like, as a young person, when I was single, I'd have all these ideas and creative aspects of, like, okay, when I'm gonna get married,
Hmm.
this is what my marriage is gonna look like, and my first year is gonna be bomb like this in this
Yeah,
sense, and
yeah,
I want to buy a house. Like I had a 9 step plan. I'm such a planner. I got married and life happened,
yeah. Hmm.
and so it changed the course of what I wanted to do. Um, I became
Yeah.
and I was like, when my Pastor Josh, approached me to be a pastor, I was very scared, very nervous, but we have a great collection of team, and
Yep.
you were a campus pastor at the time as well, so
Yeah.
there was already a reference point for me, and I could emulate and then build upon. And so on that journey of becoming a campus pastor, I had a plan. I'm going to meet the leaders, and I'm going to grow with them, and I'm going to do life with them, and then we're going to have this leadership track there, and we're going to grow our dream team, and we're
Yeah.
going to make our kids' experience a little bit better in this sense, and then we're going to have a permanent worship team, etc. Like, I had all these plans, and for me it was like a 4 or 5 year plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And within 7 months of pastoring, I am, I am blessed and fortunate enough to experience a global pandemic. I don't know
Yes.
how many pastors have
Crazy.
experienced a global pandemic in their first year of ministry, but I did.
Yeah, yeah.
I did. And the pivot, there was no reference point.
Mm.
There was no reference point of pivot. I don't, statistically speaking, the last time a global pandemic hit the United States was in 1940.
Yep.
So life is different now. I
Yes, of
mean,
course.
than what it was back then. And so for me, that pivot was hard. And so, do we get on Zoom? Do we get on,
Yeah.
do we start, going on Instagram all the time?
Yeah.
How do we communicate with people? We were so used to having, a monthly meeting with our core leadership team. What does that look like now? And it's
Yeah.
just like there was no playbook for it,
Yep.
none at all. And I would say that the experience that I've had in my first year, now going into my second year of being a pastor, is just the ability to be flexible,
Yeah.
because that's what ministry is. And I imagine that for a lot of your students here at
Hmm.
LABI, they had certain you probably had a certain idea of what college experience was going to be like.
Yep.
I mean, how was it like for you
Yeah, it was very different.
than what it is,
Yeah.
Well, how was it different for you?
Well, for me, it was different because we had the opportunity to come on campus, experience the life here on campus. The dynamics. Have you know we have relationships and meeting other people and so many other things, beautiful things. That now most of the things that we have is online.
Yeah.
Zoom. And it's very difficult to build relationships with other students
Right.
because obviously of the whole pandemic. So I think that's a difference. But I think you point something very key. We were in a place where we didn't have a handbook where we know what to do. We had to reimagine and even change many things and innovate in a certain way so that we can keep moving forward,
Absolutely.
right? So I think that flexibility and adaptability is so important because if we keep staying the same and we keep want to go back to the same thing, or we should stay in this place, in a rigid place, we're gonna find ourselves in a very tough place.
Absolutely. It was inevitable that the world was going to go digital, full on digital.
Yeah.
It was inevitable.
Yes.
This pandemic just accelerated
That
the time
process. Yeah.
frame.
Yeah.
The time frame. Eventually, this is what our kids and our grandkids. This will be the norm for them. And as much as we say, well, that's not real life. I mean, it is the reality of the world that we live in. And if you have not been able to be flexible and to adjust to this new reality, you haven't just stayed behind. You're going to regress. And any hopes of advancement in life and in your relationships, you have a very slim chance of excelling in many areas. Things look different now, and we have to rely on God's wisdom because there is no playbook,
Yep.
and be grateful for the opportunities that we have at hand. See, we could look at the obstacles as issues and problems or opportunities for growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so for you guys that here are at LABI, you guys have to look at this as, see, listen, I know what it's like to be in college, and it took me 7 years to get a 4-year degree. All right. You know why?
That was a double.
No, and I didn't double major. I just got one degree. But the reality is that everything was programmed for me. Everything was programmed for me. I could see my counselor I could walk into her office anytime one on one to give her an excuse as to why the teacher's failing me again, and, and ask for a
You
different
better
professor.
speak that truth.
And ask for a different professor, and she'd help me out, and I'd see her one on one, and she'd care about me and so forth. And being with my professors, and if I was struggling with a certain subject like math, I could go to the tutoring center, and there'd be all these geniuses there, and they'd help me out and with math, and it was a one-on-one, and everything was so programmed for me, everything was so accessible for me when I was in community college and in college, that I took a lot of things for granted, which is why I think it also took me so long to graduate. For if you're doing this online thing now, the programming aspect is almost gone. And as a student nowadays, you have to be self-motivated
Oh yeah,
to do the work,
man, that's a whole nother conversation. I love it.
to
Yes.
watch the video,
Yep.
to engage in Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Like in class, you can fake the funk. You
Yep.
can be, but now it's like, if you're on Zoom, you have your camera on, everyone can watch you at all times, and it's like, you have to be so engaged. And so for you guys, it's maybe there are the opportunities to be in person and to have this human element of a human touch isn't there, but you're creating a discipline muscle that I didn't create when I was in college,
Yep.
and
Absolutely.
self-resolve, and the ability to say no to things because you have to study now. You have to do, like, man, if you can do the things you don't want to do because you know that doing them will get you to where you want to be, then you're creating in yourself you're developing a strength of will that many people who are millennials and Gen Zers don't have. We
Yep.
want everything instantaneous.
Yep. Yep.
And so this isn't to like rag on our
No,
generation.
course
It's
not.
just a reality of how we're wired.
But you know what? You were saying something really very interesting. Now this dynamic is requiring from us and the students, to develop this discipline, prioritize, say no to certain things, So you develop a rhythm of life that's gonna help you at the end of the day in the future. Now the difference with me here, with my generation that came here, we were in a bubble in a sense. So when we left here, it was very difficult for us to engage in the dynamic of the world, in our new jobs and whatever else we were supposed to do. So now, if the students right now or the people that are studying right now develop the discipline that is necessary and the priorities that they have to take, you develop a skill.
Sure.
That is gonna help you for longevity, for the long
Absolutely.
run. So, but the problem is that because we live in a time where we don't like to discipline ourselves because it's very difficult because obviously we want to go about it, but I think the reason why many times, and I'm not saying this is the only reason, but I think the reason many times we struggle with depression, anxiety, with all these things is because of lack of discipline.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
our life is a chaos.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of the worst enemy. See, when I was younger, I grew up in a religious church. I mean, we were talking
Yeah.
about it with your campus pastor as well.
Yeah.
We blamed everything on the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. You got a
Yeah.
flat tire, it was el diablo. You know what I mean? The baby was sick, it was el diablo.
Yeah.
You had a stomach ache, it was el diablo. It wasn't
Yeah.
the tacos that you ate, at 4 in the morning from Taco Bell. It was el diablo. The enemy was mad at you, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so we always blamed the hardships of our life, our poverty, our dysfunction in our
Man,
households.
you
We
better
always
speak.
over spiritualize this thing,
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be the advocate for the enemy here, to
Yeah,
be
no.
his attorney. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely are at a spiritual war. But
Yeah.
listen, if we were to evaluate our lives,
Let's go.
Pastor Antonio,
Let's go.
and make a list of all the things we're struggling with right now,
Yep.
there's one main culprit, the common denominator.
Yep.
It would be us in our lack of discipline,
Yep.
leading to our dysfunction, our poverty, our struggles, our issues. A quote that John Maxwell always uses is, failure to plan is planning to fail.
Can you
And
repeat that again?
failure to plan is planning to fail.
Wow.
And you can't be a disciplined person without a plan. And again, you got to be flexible with your plans.
Yes,
Because
yes.
again, my Mike Tyson quote, right?
Right.
Everybody has a plan until you get
course.
punched in the mouth. You get punched in the mouth, you got to adjust the plan, though.
Yep.
You can't just quit. You can't just say, "Oh, I'll see how whatever happens."
Yep.
No, like you gotta create a new plan. So for some of you guys, that means waking up earlier. That means staying up later. That means shifting your work schedule. That means serving in your churches in different capacities and different roles. It's change, and if we don't change the plan and infuse discipline into our daily lifestyle and into our daily living, we are going to suffer more than we need to.
It's very interesting because when my wife and I church plan, I didn't understand how much a control freak I am until a church plan.
Yeah.
Because church plan would require a flexibility of me that I didn't know I needed and I didn't have before. So many times, and this is an honest conversation, many times, because we were church planning, we were set up and turned down every Sunday. We ran from like little halls, party halls,
Yeah.
to houses, to the movie theater, to next to a bar, all kinds of stuff. So the first couple months, things didn't come the way I wanted to. Sometimes, the TV didn't work, or the cable didn't work, or that didn't work, or this such a person didn't come because they feel sick, whatever. So, or perhaps the worship team didn't execute the way I wanted it to. So at the beginning, I remember that even being like in the middle of the service, I was so upset and irritated. Gabby will have to talk to me and say, "Hey, relax. You need to relax." So fast forward, almost a year later, I went through all that, and one time I was actually sharing this with Josh. One time where we used to park our trailer, in one of the storage places, they changed the time from 7 in the morning on Sundays to a 9:30. They open it, so I couldn't get in until 9:30. It would took us 2 hours to set up. So I got a call. Hey, it's closed. And they open until 9:30. I was like, we cannot set up in 30 minutes. So you have me and my team
That's crazy.
and the movie theater sitting down, and in that moment, I'll tell you, I'll be honest. This is just God shaping me
Come on,
and
man.
changing me. I was grateful. I was enjoying my time with my team. I was like, what are we gonna do? There's nothing to do. So they picked up the trailer and we just set up 2 TVs, no sound, nothing, no lights. We just went at it like that. I just preached with my voice, and it was one of those moments that I felt like the work that really the Spirit shaped me and worked in me. Because if it was months before, a year before, I would have probably burst into tears,
Right.
upset, mad. So I feel like we need to keep a humble heart when it comes into flexibility. Because if we obsess with things that I would never do that, that would never happen to me, or if I find myself in that place, bro, let me tell you, you say that,
Yeah.
it's gonna happen to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. I think the disciples had to go through that as well.
Mm,
I think being a follower of Jesus taught them very well to be adaptable to
yeah.
every situation, because even even not just every town that they went to was different and presented a different set of challenges and opportunities and things to solve, but also the journey. You see that in the journey as well. You see that while they travel, different things happen. They're sleeping and a storm comes. They thought, okay, we just did a long 2 day, 3 day crusade.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
did
yeah.
ministry, and we're about to go to this other town. And every time we go to another town, Jesus always has to minister. So we're going to sleep on the boat right there. And what happens? A storm comes, and they're awakened in that moment, right? In that moment, they're awakened. And then they look out to the waters and they see a being walking on the waters, and they say it's a ghost. They misinterpret what is going on. So, a couple things, if we could just,
Yeah, yeah.
try to preach through this text, right?
Yeah.
A, their plan of resting, was interrupted. And two, we know that that was Jesus walking on the water, but they misinterpreted what was happening
Mm,
because the
yes.
situation wasn't a good one.
Yeah.
And they couldn't see how God or how Jesus could be in the midst of this situation
Yeah.
because he wasn't in their proximity.
Mm,
And for a lot of people, for a lot of students, for a lot of ministers, for a lot of pastors right now, when we look at the statistics of how many of them are depressed right now, are lonely
yes.
right now, are struggling with anxiety right now,
Yeah.
are shutting their churches down. Barna did a study where they said 33% of churches will not recover from COVID and will shut down in the next 24 months. 33% of churches, bro.
Yep.
That means that in their storm, they thought, we preach a series called 2020 Perfect Vision. You know how many churches preach a series called 2020 Perfect Vision last year?
Man.
How many of us saw this coming?
Yes. Yes. I agree.
And we laid out this vision for our church, and we thought we were going to coast through the first year of this decade. We
Yeah.
thought we were going to, multiply in numerically or in spiritually, however, and then a storm happened. And for a lot of us, we see a ghost where Jesus is. We see a ghost because we don't see how Jesus can be in the middle of the situation.
Yeah.
And Jesus comes and, he calms the waters and he gives them a lesson there.
Yeah.
But here's the craziest thing for me. Peter sees this as an opportunity. He says, I've been a fisherman all my life.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to be on these waters on a boat. I've been to and from over these waters on a boat, but I ain't never walked on water.
Mm,
This is my chance.
yes.
I want to experience something no one's ever experienced.
Yeah.
I want to test this power. And so he says, if it's really you, can you call me out to come?
Yeah.
And he walked on the water. And we always sometimes, growing up in a Christian home, we always over spiritualize the fact that he fell,
Mm-hmm.
that he started drowning because he saw the waves and stuff.
Yeah.
But he actually walked on water.
Yeah. He give a couple steps, man.
He actually walked on water. How many other humans could say that?
Yeah.
And so what I'm getting at is right now, the programming of our churches and meeting and gathering or coming to a college campus or starting several businesses, that was our boat that we were riding,
Mm,
But here's Jesus giving us this peace. But what he wants you to do now is he wants you to step out of the boat.
yeah.
Do something you've never done. Trust him. Ask him, Lord,
Yeah.
call me to something different. Be the pioneer. Be the person that'll say, you know what? If I fail, at least I trusted God.
Yeah.
God will always honor anything you do as long as you do it out of obedience to him. Like he will honor it. God has shown me that. He will honor anything you do out of obedience. And so right now, man, like how you and Gabby, you guys planted, you guys endured all these things because you were what do they call that? A church plant that sets up and tears down. There's a name for it. It's not a mobile church. It's I forget what it's called,
Yeah.
but there's a name for church plants that set up, tear down every single Sunday. that comes with a set of challenges, but an opportunity. In that, you
Yeah.
saw the resolve of people.
Yeah.
You could tell who's in and who's
Oh
out.
yeah.
Yeah, we can complain about, but see, when for those of us who did have a building, for those of us who did have a location, who did have offices, who did have a green room for this worship team and for the speakers here, for the dream team there.
Yeah.
When this pandemic hit, we could see, we were like, wait, I thought he was with us. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was with us as long as he could experience all the
Yep.
benefits,
Yep.
or as long as we were catering to them.
Yep.
So there's a difference where, like, when you go through what you went through as a church planter, you could see immediately
Yeah.
the level of commitment
Oh
of people.
yes. No, yeah, and I think about it because we talk with Gabby sometimes, it was insane to mobilize 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds every Sunday to come from 6:30 in the morning to sometimes even 1:30 or 1 p.m. It was just insane.
Yeah.
And young adults that didn't have money,
Yeah.
young adults that some of them they were kind of into faith, kind of not.
Right.
Like it was just a whole mix of a people that we had, and I think that the reality is that it was in that process, in the
Right.
flexibility ups and downs. We saw who was, and the first 3 months, Freddie, the first 3 months, half of our team transitioned out.
They couldn't.
They couldn't.
They couldn't.
They
I mean,
imagined something that it
Can I
wasn't.
say it? I mean, maybe they
Go
couldn't
for it.
hang.
No, of course they had
Maybe-
the wrong. Perhaps they had the wrong expectation.
This is what I signed up
Yep.
for.
They have the wrong expectations. Perhaps they were like, you know what, this is not for me. And I get it. I respect them. I love them, and I'm not bashing on them.
No,
But
of course,
All I'm
of course.
saying is like, the reality is that it require a muscle of us, like that. Some of us were not willing to engage. But anyways, I think that when we talk about flexibility and adaptability, I think it's very important that it's not just in ministry, also in life, and everything that is happening and with our families, relationships. You and I know, like we have the opportunity to be married. You cannot, you cannot control a relationship. You cannot control everything that you do. We can plan, we can be disciplined, but if we're not willing to be flexible with things coming our way, be resilient, with whatever comes our way,
Yeah.
it's yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Pastor Josh shared this analogy with us, and he said that you're so in love when you're like engaged, you're so in love when you're dating someone, that you imagine that this is only going to, nothing can go wrong. Like, it's just marriage is going to enhance all the beauty of things. But then you get married and discover, for example, that your spouse, like, you like Crest toothpaste and she likes Colgate.
Yeah.
You like to sleep with the AC on. She likes to sleep with the heater on. You like to blast your music. Maybe she doesn't. And so there's all these things that at the he goes, like, he says it all the time. He's like, hey man, those first 6-7 months when you discover your differences,
Yeah.
they're gonna become petty arguments. Petty arguments. But if you commit
Yes.
to, like, not leaving each other, to not divorcing the relationship, to not abandoning, each other, if you commit to just learning how to compromise throughout this whole thing and get over that first hump of discomfort, first hump of having to die to yourself and compromising, and
Yeah.
all right, then let's just leave the thermostat at 77 degrees. I don't know. He goes, if you can just get through that initial phase of discomfort and you don't quit, you'll stay together forever. And that's part of it, right? And so I think about that. I think about, for example, your church plant, that in the first 3 months, half of your team transitioned out. They decided to just, hey, I'm going to give this a year. No matter what happens, no matter what curveball life throws my way, no matter how hard we get punched in the mouth as a team, I'm going to commit to not quit. I wonder what percentage of those that did actually leave your team would right now have developed a muscle
Wow.
that would be actually blessing them and benefiting them in their relationships, their careers,
Yes.
their marriage, their ministries, their finances, etc. Had they just determined not to quit. They tell you, right, in January at the beginning of the year, everybody signs up for the gym. By the 21st day, most people aren't using their membership anymore. You would be surprised, LBI, how much you can accomplish in life if you just don't quit.
Wow. Yes.
If you just don't quit.
Yep.
There's things that I've started in my life that I regret quitting on them now. If I'd have just kept going with this, if I'd have just kept studying, if I'd have just kept producing this, if I'd have just kept pushing through, if I'd have just endured the low views and the poor numbers and the poor metrics, if I'd have just kept going, now I'd have the biggest whatever.
Yep.
Now I'd have the biggest business, a blessed this, a blessed that.
Yeah.
If you just don't quit. And so that has to be a resolve in your heart. That has to be like, if I don't jump ship, the disciples had it hard. Anytime they would say, Lord Jesus, this is what we've given up for you, Jesus would be like, you haven't given up anything for me.
Yeah.
They'd be like, but we left our homes. We left our comfort. Yeah, but he like every progress always demands something from us.
Yeah.
And right now, LABI, like you don't know how much you're gonna be able to accomplish in life
Yeah.
if you commit that in this season of your life,
That's good.
you're not gonna quit.
That's good.
If you just don't,
good.
if you just say, you know what,
Yeah,
I'm
man.
not gonna quit until I finish. I'm not gonna quit until get my degree. I'm not gonna finish until I came to get, until I get what I came for.
Yeah.
If you just commit to not, no matter what it looks like, we meet online, we meet in person, it's a hybrid, whatever it is. If you commit to not quitting, you will be surprised at how God blesses you because He's going to honor your resolve.
That was good, Pastor Freddie. We can keep talking. I love it. I know that we could go many routes with
Many
what you
routes.
said. Pastor Freddie, thank you so much for being
course.
with us. Hopefully, we can have you back soon again. And family, hopefully you took some notes. This can help in your life. Trust me, from experience, Pastor Freddie. And hope to see you soon. Love you.